use cases of Web3 through DePIN. This episode of the DePIN Hub podcast is brought to you by Nodi, the new Node as a Service product by DePIN Hub. We've seen that 2025 is the opportunities of the node sales. There's a lot of projects with great opportunities, but to run a node is quite complicated. You need to understand Linux, technical terminology, servers, virtual servers, VPNs, VPS, a lot of complexities that you don't want to have to handle. And even if you do, you want to be able to sleep at night knowing that other people are taking care of that for you, right? Leave this work for the nerds. We guarantee that you're going to have the best service possible and all your nodes are going to be generating passive income for you every day without you having to do any work. So go to depinhub.io/nodes. And that page, you're going to know everything that's happening in our Node as a Service product. And make sure to subscribe to the newsletter because there you're going to know everything that's happening, all the promotions, all the sales, all the great opportunities to make 2025 a great year for us all. Hello everyone, Daniel from DePIN Hub here. Today we're interviewing Fredrik, CEO and co-founder of Sourceful Energy, a company revolutionizing the energy sector by leveraging decentralized solutions to create sustainable and efficient energy systems. Let's dive into this journey, how they started. I think the first time I met Fredrik was 2023, right, in Amsterdam during Solana Breakpoint. And then it's been very interesting to see the progress of the project. They recently changed the name from a Sourceful, compact Web2 name to Sourceful Energy now. But anyway, thanks so much for joining the podcast, Fredrik. It's always nice to meet you around the world and sharing experiences and information. Let's start by you telling about yourself, your background, and your role at Sourceful Energy.
That's correct. Actually, we did meet in Amsterdam 2023 at Breakpoint. And I just can give you kudos to you, Daniel. We were a new project. I was new in the area, and you were very hospitable and actually introduced me to other people. And so that's a great way of actually paying things forward. I will do the same. So, but yeah, a little bit about myself. Swedish, and the full team is in Sweden, by the way. Started my career way back in the days. It feels like a long time ago, but I was a Navy officer. So I've sailed submarines, doing all the stuff that you do in the military when you have people in uniform. And then that was 9 years of my life. And then I transitioned over to academia, and I would say that's the main part of my career. I've did my PhD in energy engineering, and I would say energy efficiency and machine learning at the time before things were AI. This was 2017, so ML was the big thing and no one wanted to speak about AI. And on that route, I eventually sort of started up an IoT lab, so Internet of Things, in the university. Started to grow that with some funding, employed research engineers and postdocs and such. And on that way, in my role at the university, as a lecturer, as a researcher, I found out about helium. I love the idea. And this is actually, I found about helium not from the, I would say, crypto perspective at all. So I was working with the Things network, which is another LoRaWAN network, very much community powered. I still love those guys, by the way. And then helium came up. At that time, I was working from Vancouver at the University of British Columbia, so quite close on the West Coast. And so I came back to Sweden 2021, and then I need to learn more. I need to dive into this. So I ordered a bunch of hotspots, like everyone else did. And I know, Daniel, you were before me, but I was still, I would say, early in Europe. So deployed 20-ish hotspots. I would say that was my way of this business model it's really something. And the term DePIN wasn't a term at that point. It was just helium and let's do stuff, incentivize a decentralized network. And it was IoT, and now it's more mobile. But that was my way into being a big believer. I've always been interested in crypto and mined Ethereum. I built my own rig in, I think, 2017. I mined a little bit Bitcoin on my home computer. And honestly, I don't even have the keys. But yeah, interested in that, but never really like understood it until helium came along. Like when I saw that you could build real physical stuff and actually power something so massive as what helium did, that was why I need to build something on myself. So that's the backstory of Sourceful.
I can relate actually quite a lot with you on that, and I've been into around crypto since like 2012, like following, like, you know, I had a little bit of Bitcoin then. There was like other tokens that don't exist anymore, Litecoin, etc. But I've been following. I will remember ICO, Ethereum, but I was always working on the side, and crypto is just like something that I follow, just I hold a little bit. But it was actually because of this idea of like decentralized infrastructure. The time we used to call like DY, decentralized wireless, and really made me, okay, this is something that I really want to be part of because I understand the whole stack. Still early, there's a lot of work to be done. I mean, it's still early after, 4 years that we started this journey, and there's still a lot of work to be done, but it's exciting to see how many new projects, how many exciting projects are coming, like Sourceful Energy, for example. What are you guys building?
Yeah, that's actually an interesting question. Let's talk about that. Yeah, we are building a decentralized energy network. And I would say that the main goal for us is to empower everyone to take part of being able to be a part of the solution for what is happening in the grid, like the electricity system. So that's, I would say, the core pitch. We want everyone to be able to participate. And how do you actually make people participate with the resources they have? And when I say resources, I mean, you could have a battery. Most people don't yet, but like that trend is rising quickly. You could have solar panels. The same thing here. Many people do, but most don't yet. And you could have an EV, an electric vehicle. You could have a Bitcoin miner. You could have a hot tub. You could have a lot of things. It doesn't actually need to be producing power, but as long as this is one thing that you own, an asset that either can push or pull power to the grid, then that is valuable. And that's the cool thing about DePIN projects. You could own a house and then you have a rooftop. And that is valuable because you could put an antenna on the rooftop. And the same thing with energy, I would say. So that's our aim. We want to make it as accessible and cost-effective and cheap as possible for anyone to connect their energy assets to the grid. That's the whole point. So we're not, we get this question a lot, like, oh, I have my off-grid solution, like, could I join in? Actually, that wouldn't make sense for our project. We want to be able to strengthen the grid, the infrastructure that we live in. So it's not like off-grid isn't really the core of us. So that's what we're doing. We could dive into the demand side and everything, but we want to make that as easy as possible. And solar, that's the best narrative ever. We always talk about solar, and that's the cool thing. Like, the more renewables we get in the grid, the more strain we put on the old grid that we have. We all need electricity. It's like just a necessity. I would say even more important than Wi-Fi, because Wi-Fi doesn't even work without electricity. But it's one of these basic needs of a modern society. And when we start pushing more and more power that is not controlled by humans, but by the weather and like renewables, you are also creating new challenges. So I would say that's the core part of, like, the more resources that we can be coordinated in the system. That's the core thesis, and we want to make that as easy as possible on global scale.
Initially, when you guys started, the idea is this: you measure the amount of electricity produced by solar panels. And this way you can, carbon offset or something like that. And then now you're also measuring consumption. Or is it what you're building, is it more like a smart grid approach in terms of being able to measure everything, collect this data, and then decide when some things should turn on and off in order to smoothen the load on the grid, for example?
Yeah, so it's absolutely linked, I would say, to the smart grid. And I would say, if you want to build a smart grid, I know, Daniel, you're an engineer as well. So if you want to build a smart grid, you need to have the data. Like, it wouldn't be very smart if you don't know what's happening. And you also need the control. So if you want the smartness to actually do something, well, you need to be able to send some kind of control signals. So I would say that even though we're not really saying that we're building the smart grid, we're building the infrastructure for calling it a smart grid. So yes, that's what, in essence, we might not be the ones that are saying we have the smart grid. We are just making it easy for the operators of the grid, the utility company, to operate this in a smarter way. So I would say that we're sort of drawing the internet lines to all the decentralized energy resources, and also making it easy for each and every one that has a resource to get part of that value chain, because that's a problem. Like, how do you incentivize millions and millions and millions of people with very much small assets on scale? We all know that there are solutions, and
yeah, that's what is it's so cool, right? Actually, I worked in a research in smart grids. It was back in 2012 when I was living in Italy, and it's crazy. Like, it's been 12 years, and I didn't see much happen in that, right? You don't see, like, the idea is that, okay, you send like the 220, 230 volts on like 60 hertz, but then there's going to be a higher frequency that you can send a signal, and then your washing machine should turn on and off depending on the information coming. But it's been 12 years, this dream, let's say, since I was studying that and I was working with it. And I think probably one missing piece is what you guys are building, right?
Yeah, and things take a long time. Like, we have been talking about one specific thing. Like, I can just take that as an anecdote from the energy sector. It's been several years since we sort of the vehicle to grid started be a thing. Like, you could use your electric car and you could either charge to the grid or back and use it for your house. And there are still no or almost none existing, like just prototype and really expensive solutions. And still everyone talks about it, but it takes years and years and years. And like, why can't it just happen? But I think we see things. Probably it will eventually happen. We want to be there when things sort of take off. But the cool thing about, we are in a position now, from the market perspective, when the utility companies have realized they are not able to actually make this themselves. And I would say that we have quite close partnerships and with utilities, and the core thesis of why we're talking with them is that they want flexible resources. Everyone wants that because they can maintain their grid better, they can know what happens in the end nodes, and also obviously keep the frequency stable. Like, there's a lot of reasons why they are interested in flexibility. That's the core part. And then the next question: how do a utility company solve this problem themselves? It's a hard problem for them, because the homeowner for a utility company is mainly someone they bill for energy. They have no real relation with you as actually not anything. You're just a customer. Their whole business is based around this, selling you energy. So this is actually a hard problem. And it's also so extremely many different utility companies that compete on selling you the cheapest energy bill. Like, that's the way they compete. And well, I don't think there is a good idea if there is 1,000 different solutions on solving this problem. They all sort of need to agree. They could probably get together and agree, but our approach is, let's build something that they rather use instead. That's the approach that we're taking. And
also, it's very expensive, right? Like, if they want to build what you guys are building, they have to have the OPEX and CAPEX to do that, while leveraging DePIN, people are going to be doing the work for them and then taking a part of the, let's say, some of the income resources.
There are actually quite, I mean, I think from my perspective, like, I know that you speak about this also in as part of Hotspotty and DePIN Hub, that like you want to evaluate DePIN projects on like a good standard. I think from my perspective, of course, I'm biased now when I say this, but from my perspective, if there are profitable Web 2 businesses that have shown that there is a demand side on this, and you sort of put like a tokenized model and making that more cost effective and more efficient with the DePIN model, then you're onto something. So I don't think DePIN projects that invent something totally new that no one like that, it might work, but it might also not work. But that's just, I think, I can just say, in our case, the energy market, there are already profitable Web 2 business operating with, I would say, aggregating flexible resources for customers. And that's the cool thing, because that also was the case for LoRaWAN before Helium came around. Like, yeah, there were already companies deploying gateways, LoRaWAN, and like IoT connectivity, but they are really expensive. And for our case, we are able to push out a gateway that costs less than $200. At least in Europe, that's the price, including tax. It's a rebranded Helium hotspot without the LoRaWAN concentrator. So we are also compliant with the ROC version 2 hotspot. It's a really good, solid platform. I can dive into like how and why we chose this, and also the collaboration with Helium, because we are very close to Helium. But the Web 2 businesses that do this kind of same approach, you need some kind of hardware on local level, just because you need it. You won't be able to control. You need some kind of coordination, some kind of gateway that makes this be possible. They are often no less than 1,000 euros. 1,000 to 1,500 euros. Industrial grade devices. The user interfaces are super crappy. They are made to be installed by a technician, so the user doesn't even have a way to install this. And we see the exact same thing that happened there, I would say, in what Helium changed in the LoRaWAN business. Buying a LoRaWAN gateway before Helium, yeah, you need to be, at least know what you're doing. You might even need to access a Linux terminal and configure things. Helium made it easy. They made a user-friendly app, and you just onboarded it. And I think that's very much the approach that we're taking as well. We want this to be a consumer product first, should be extremely simple, and everyone should be able to access it. And we want to keep the cost as low as possible. So that's the approach. And the Web 2 company, they don't operate like that.
Which kind of products do you have, and how do I work with them? Because there is like the miner, which is like on a, maybe we can talk a little bit about this. It's like a rack device connected on the Helium network as well. Like, what is the interaction between Sourceful being a sub-DAO of like the Helium? Now everything's AGNT. There's like the whole confusion.
Yeah, so that has been a confusing ride. Let's just very quickly say that, yeah, we are not a sub-network, sub-DAO of Helium. We had an idea, and this was early last year, that let's be part of the networks of networks. Helium was very much into building, I would say, the DePIN of DePINs, or the networks of networks. And we started the discussion early on. We were working extremely close with the Helium Foundation core team, and we were at that time thinking, let's align our firmware and upgrade, super boost the existing hotspots with Sourceful firmware, and they can be utilized for both being an IoT hotspot or a mobile hotspot, and there is no problem for us to do, I would say, the Sourceful stuff on the same device. So if you have an energy resource, makes sense from the user perspective. You don't need to buy an extra hardware. You get more passive income, and from that perspective, it also at that time made a lot of sense to combine and join forces with Helium. Brand recognition, community, and all that. So we started that. We did a Helium improvement proposal that was running over the summer, HIP 128, and it passed. So a lot of discussions, a lot of people that were skeptical, but it passed. And then I would say, fast forward a little bit, a lot of things happened during the fall from both ends. Helium pushed back on the token model, that going back to one token. I believe that's a good idea. So I'm not actually. I think the everything that has happened has been a good outcome. Like, I'm a positive person. I always try to feel, and it also didn't really make sense for us, because when we started doing a little bit more deeper simulations on how that, I would say, the tokenomics accrual and the value, and it became quite quickly a little bit too complex with the sub-DAO score model, which almost no one knows about, even in the core Helium community. I would say very few people knew how that worked. Like, even mobile and IoT was quite complex with treasuries and HST and like it. So I think the route back to simplicity, it's a really, really good way. And the route back to simplicity, and that means also focusing on wireless, mobile and IoT, and not energy. And it all made sense for us also to actually step out. So we sort of departed a little bit on the sub-network, sub-DAO model, but we are still doing dual mining. We still have that option. Helium Foundation did invest in our pre-seed. That's an official thing. So we actually are backed by Helium. I think we are one of the very, very few, or maybe the only DePIN project that actually has gotten, I would say, financial venture capital backing from Helium Foundation. With that said, yeah, we are backed by all the people in Helium Foundation, everyone. You're sort of also part of Sourceful. So I think that's, for me, it's a good partnership. I absolutely love the guys in Helium, and we are still, I would say, working close together, but not as a sub-network. So that was the story of Sourceful and Helium. And it's all a very good outcome, I would say, because we focus now very much on our core model without being distracted. So
that's a good story. And you're building on Solana, I guess.
Yes, Solana it is. And we are pre-TGE, so we haven't launched the token yet. And also that is per design. We follow a lot of advice. That's one thing as a startup founder. Like, you get so extremely many advice from a lot of talented people, and it's hard to know what you're going to do. But one of the things that, like, we are quite sure of is that we need to do a proper TGE and not do it too early. So we believe Q3 this year is like when we're going to do the TGE. So it might change, but that's the plan at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. Don't rush into it, right? That's I think there's a lot of problems with investors a lot of times, that they only care about their TGE tokens. They don't necessarily so much about the project. They're going to be pressuring you into TGE as soon as possible because they can have their liquidity position, right? But yeah, I would say just do when the time is right and you're ready.
Yeah. But so at this point, we're totally building on Solana, and I would say definitely will not change, because like we have found a very, very good fit with Solana. It makes a lot of sense for us. We want to have like the functionality of Solana, and I would say that we've already built so much now, so it's hard to change. So yeah, I'm a Solana believer, much because of the user interface. So I always say, like, I'm not against any other chains. Like, I think there should be many, and I think that's a good thing. But just the fact that if you're on Polygon or Ethereum or whatever, like, it's so confusing because you can have the same public wallet and you can swap chains. And yeah, I understand the technical why it is like this, but from the user perspective, it's actually not good. It makes it very, very confusing, and crypto is already confusing if you haven't started, like if you don't know what the wallet is. Solana has made a good job. Like, if you have a Solana wallet, that's your address, and there is no other Solana chains that you can sort of confuse with, at least not yet. So
no, exactly. I think it was funny because this week my girlfriend, she had put some money in crypto on Revolut Bank, and then she wanted to take it out, and then she didn't even know which chain was coming out. We found out it was on Polygon, and then she wanted to actually convert this to Solana, and then I had to teach her about bridging, how that worked. She was so confused, and like she works in crypto, not like as a developer, but as for a normal person, like for us, these concepts of bridging, smart contracts, etc., it's quite straightforward. But it takes a long time. I've been in crypto for a long time until these things actually make sense. If you want to get, everyone to be in crypto, Solana is the way to go. I tell everyone, just get a Solana, a Phantom wallet. It's super friendly. Even if you pay a little bit more fees using the Phantom to do swaps instead of Jupiter, for example, it's still like the best way to onboard people to crypto, not through MetaMask, which is like a mess of a wallet. It's very professional. Like it has all the features, but it's a shit show when it comes to user friendliness, right?
I want to consider like building on a blockchain. That's not the important part. It's building a product that actually works in the best way possible. We could have a debate on which database to use. Like you use a NoSQL database, Mongo or whatever, or a time series. Like for the user, they don't care. Like we and I think that's my perspective. And then I have a great CTO that like actually does care more about these things than I do. My perspective is building a kick-ass product, and that's what I aim to do. But yeah, Solana ecosystem and the user experience, that makes things a lot simpler, I would say.
So we started with this, and now you have something called Zap, right?
Yes, I've always wanted to launch like our own branded product. So this is also like a baby of mine. Like I think it's so fun to actually have like the product like made by Sourceful, because the object that you like, the gateway, that's Rock Wireless. We're great partners with them, and like I absolutely love their device. But it's a gateway. It's not made by us. It's just a device. So the Zap, I would say that's our own brand. Even though we haven't built it by our own hands, we use a company, we have a partnership, but it's our own brand. You can't buy it anywhere else. It's just this one. And the SAP, just to explain what this is a so-called P1 meter. For some people, they exactly understand what I'm talking about, because maybe in Portugal that is the case. I believe many people have like this port on the utility meter. But to explain it from a high level, about 180 million people living in the European Union more or less have, or soon to have, a smart utility meter. And when I say smart utility meter, it's a utility meter that sends its data to your utility company, wireless, or it could be a wire, but it's smart in that way. Maybe that's not too smart, but that's the definition. And because European Union likes to regulate things, sometimes I would say it's not very good, but in this case, I think it's actually quite good. They have regulated so each and every smart meter that is being installed in European Union should have a customer interface. And what that means is that you should be able to pull out the same data that is sent to your utility company. You should have some kind of interface. And that interface is it could be like an Ethernet port, an RJ45, or an RJ12, like the old telephone cables. That is on your utility meter. Most people might not know about this. But if you plug in a device, such as the SAP or numerous others P1 meters, it's not like it's a quite standard product. You can take out the same data that is sent to the utility company, but more or less in real time. You get it directly. Every 10 seconds, that is the standard. The cool thing here is that, for the user, you will directly be able to know the instant energy consumption in your home. You could boil coffee and you would be able to see that in the app at the same instant. So it's a really good way of knowing, I would say, your consumption. You can actually use that as an insight of directly knowing what to turn off and on. But the even more valuable thing is on the other side, the utilities. They only usually know the sum for every hour. It's really hard for them to, on a scale, sort of get that data at like a second level. They don't do it. They are also interested. You are able to actually share that data the same way as Demo is, like they're running their business on, like you can share your data from your car. you're already driving your car and you might think, yeah, who cares? I'm happy to share my data. Oh, someone pays for it. Great. And the same thing with energy data. Yeah, you might think the same. And like I'm anyway just using energy. I'm getting billed for it, but I could actually get a little bit back on sharing like my instant consumption. And this could be used for AI optimization, part of what we talked about earlier, the smart grid. There's so many things that this can derive value. But from the end user, that's our goal. Connect the device, you get a really good feature. That is, you know your energy consumption. That's it. And you know it instant, and you get some good visualization. People are already paying Web 2 companies for doing the exact same thing, and often with a subscription. Now we provide the same thing without a subscription. On the contrary, you get paid. So that's the power of a DePIN project. And then when you pull these things together, that's the cool thing. If you have the P1 meter, if you have solar and an energy gateway, if you have a battery, all these data points can be tied together, and you get an extremely good picture of like the influx and outflux of energy from your home. You can see how much energy you actually used for your own consumption, how much you sold, and there's so many things that I would say make sense. And also, verification problem is easier if we have more data sources. Always the problem for a DePIN project, like how do you know that this isn't a gamed system? So that's one part. The SAP is also a fantastic anti-gaming device.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely going to get one. I believe I have a smart meter in my home, especially because I think if there is not that person knocking on your door once every few months to read your meter manually, chances that you already have a smart meter in your home. One thing people can do is like, go to your meter and then write down the values and try to calculate how much you're spending. But I remember when I was living in Berlin back in 2016, I was so shocked and scared at the same time that you get your electricity bill every month, but it's an average over the past 6 months. So if something goes wrong in those 6 months, you're going to pay a lot of money because there was no way for you to have this feedback. Because I'm always thinking, what if like I have a fridge and my fridge has like a broken part, and that broken part has like a resistor that keeps burning a lot of electricity? I won't know until 6 months, and I'm going to be paying for 6 months of wasted electricity. Or when the whole family comes over for Christmas and you want to just figure out you're going to have money to pay for everybody's like showers. I think this is a fantastic project. I really, really like. I can see so many use cases as well.
Yeah. So, and I think that we didn't start with this app. So this is an evolution of things that we started to think about the verification problem. That was okay. How do we know that your gateway is actually reading data that is like valid? How do we know that this links together with? So yeah, let's try to tap into more data sources. And so that we are already doing. Like you can join in Sourceful now with either buying a gateway, buying a SAP. But if you buy a gateway and a SAP, we multiply the rewards because you are more valuable for the system. Like two things 1 + 1 here will be free. And the thing here is that if you also add your cloud connected API, many of your devices is already connected. So we are compliant with SolarEdge and Huawei, like two major inverter brands. And you most likely already have an app from the manufacturer, and you can see how much solar you produce. That's all fine. The same analogy that you might already have a car, the car is connected, and you might be able to see things in that car app. You can still connect it to Demo without buying a Demo device. Demo gets less good data because you're working with an API and not directly with hardware. The same thing applies for us. If we connect to the API, we get crappy data. Like it's 10 or 15 minutes intervals. Like you get what you get, but you get something. And the thing here is that if you connect your API and you have a gateway, we don't have one, we have two data sources. And we can directly trust that your data is more valid than just trusting one data source. So we use this as also validation mechanisms. It will be significantly harder to game the system, because you would be able, you need to game also your manufacturer and not just Sourceful. So at least it would be harder.
How do you envision the project 2025 into the next 5 years? What is the roadmap?
Yeah, so the roadmap this year, we are at the point now when we are starting to build the developer platform. So that's the end goal. We want to become like the platform, the technology for being able to access all these resources. So that's what we want to build. And so now we're starting to do that. So I would say now is the point for us when we start to grow. In order to reach the milestones that we have ahead, I would say the token generation event, that will be the major thing that happens this year for us. And I really, really hope that I don't regret saying this, but it will happen in Q3, as I said. Until then, we want to have 10,000 connected DERs, like decentralized energy resources. When we're speaking now, we see actually quite a steady growth. So I think that we are more than 200 now, and we're growing every day. The curve looks really promising because it's like you see it really go up. But I think that's what we want to achieve. I think we need to reach that threshold of community. And then there are a couple of milestones, obviously, which is extremely important for the value of the project. That is the demand side. So we are doing I'm more like the Web3, I would say, phase when we're talking here, and also in the Web3 community. But we are also, I would say, very heavily, driving partnerships with the traditional old school energy sector. And we have a couple of extremely interesting partnerships on the way. I will be disclosing those later on. But both from the distribution side and also, I would say, from the demand side. So I think when all these things fall into place, we will be an extremely interesting player in the energy DePIN space. And not actually a direct competitor to some of the others. We are still doing a little bit different things. So maybe I could mention, let's look at Daylight. They've often, that's the goal. They've come a far way, and Jason is doing a great job, and I absolutely love what they're building. But they are also building, I would say, a more vertical approach, and we are more building a platform approach. And I think there will be a lot of synergies in between. So I'm not that worried actually about competition. I think we'll be able to drive this forward.
The market is bigger enough as well. I think, it's energy. Energy is like one of the biggest markets out there. So plenty of opportunities for everyone to work together and help each other, right?
Everyone uses electricity. Everyone. Well, could probably find someone that doesn't. But I mean, in the modern world, it's like one of the base necessities that we all absolutely need. So
yeah, of course. So where can people go to learn more about Sourceful, to get the Zap device, to get all the devices, and to follow everything that you guys are building?
I think the easiest thing is to just go to our website, sourceful.energy. Hopefully that's clear enough to find whatever you need from that page. But we do have a Discord community. It should be extremely simple, I do hope, to buy this app. Note, it's European only. Very sorry, but we are working on solutions for, I would say, the US market. A lot of people have asked, but at this point, this app is European only. And I can actually announce a cool thing. We have already reached the pre-order of 500. That happened actually last week, so it went pretty quick. And the country where we have seen most orders from is the Netherlands. So they're quite, I would say, on to new things, I think. So kudos to you in the Netherlands. Yeah,
the Netherlands, that's actually when the Things Network started as well, right, in Amsterdam. So I think it's a country that loves new technology. But I'll make sure to get some of the devices also here in Portugal. I'm definitely going to order one for myself from my house, because I really like this idea of understanding. But I'm going to also add this podcast to DePINHub.io on Sourceful page. There you can see all the links to the page, podcast. It's going to have links to the Discord, Telegram, anywhere that you can reach out to the team as well. It's a very interesting project that I want to definitely stay in touch. I'm going to see you in a few weeks in Hong Kong. So everyone who's listening, we're going to be in Hong Kong during Consensus, end of February 2025. It's going to be a lot of cool things there. Other projects going to be there. And if you want to talk to us, just let us know. Of course, if you're listening to this podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, just make sure to subscribe, follow, does the bing, ring, etc., whatever you need to do to keep on following, because there's going to be a lot of nice projects, nice founders that I'm interviewing in the future, like Fredrik. Well, thank you so much for joining. It's, of course, a pleasure to always talk to you, and I hope to see you in a few weeks and catch up.
Really looking forward to that. So thank you very much for inviting me.
Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers.